Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my returning guest and my close friend who I love to have a good old-fashioned conversation with, the lovely, the talented Miss Leah Sarich. How you doing, Leah?
I am doing so well. It's so fun to chat with you as always, Tyler.
We are long overdue. I went back into the archives. I knocked the dust off. October 2021. Can you even believe it?
I cannot believe that. I absolutely cannot believe that. That actually is blowing my mind a little bit. But if I take a moment, then I'm like, oh, yes, I remember the pandemic and all that. And then it's like my notion of
I try not to remember the pandemic.
Right? But time collapsed, right? In that period. So that's why we lost, 5 years or no, 4.
Yes,
I can't
yeah. But a lot has happened in that time. So I
True.
would say I might have lost the context of it, but our city has moved forward. You're head of story at Thin Air Labs. You were pretty new in the role at that time. So for me is a couple, I obviously want to hear what's going on with Thin Air. I love everybody over there and what you guys are doing. Also, I remember the conversation of you being like, hey, I was a journalist. I did the news. I didn't really know what was going on in this world. Fast forward, and also let's not be remiss. This is your 5-year anniversary of starting at Thin Air Labs today in March.
It is actually, which is kind of astonishing actually. When I look at 5 years have gone by, that's amazing. But yeah, I guess I know a few things now. And sometimes I say words that my friends are like, what did you just say? And I was like, I have no idea what I'm saying right now. And it's amazing to me.
Repeating a word is a start. No, being able to explain it to someone who doesn't understand it, that's another level.
Right.
But let's start. Let's not make any assumptions. What the heck's the Thin Air Labs? Let's play that game for a second.
Thin Air Labs.
Give us a quick little for anyone in the city who might be listening that doesn't know you guys or hasn't heard of you.
Yes. Okay. So Thin Air Labs, we are a venture capital and services firm. And we basically exist to help startups grow into globally competitive companies. And so we do that support in many different ways. So sometimes we're investing in them. Sometimes we're just having a coffee with a founder and making sure they're okay. Sometimes we are helping them get grant funding and other non-dilutive funding. Sometimes we're helping them with product and development support. And sometimes we're championing their story. That's where I come in.
Head of story.
Exactly.
Funding catalyst, design and build products, product growth, product discovery. Mm-hmm. I've had a few of your team on that I've had some great conversations with. Has the list of services expanded? I'm
Nope.
thinking it's been the same since I would have
Same
chatted.
2 services. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and they've just been growing like gangbusters. I mean,
Amazing.
It's wild. Yeah. Like the Funding Catalyst service has been so impactful in our community. But even beyond that, we now service companies all across North America, and they've helped startups secure north of $65 million in non-dilutive funding.
I was going to say the key to that is non-dilutive. That's the word we needed to get out there.
Yeah. So absolutely. Non-dilutive funding. And, that means that these companies can just keep growing and doing what they want to do. And this is incredible. So and
that can be incredibly time consuming. And I know a lot of founders, time is not something that they have in spades.
Precisely.
So having a partner that works with you guys, that works with them and comes in and understands. And oftentimes I'm a founder, I might have never navigated that before. You have $65 million of experience in navigating that world to shortcut that process.
Exactly, right? So they're experts on that team, and they do this every day. And so they can do it a lot faster. They can do it with a lot more attention, and they can help you realize, which ones you should actually go after and are worth your time and energy.
Vetting that out, I've also heard from founders that those can be wild goose chases that take you off your focus. And in the early days of we could be this or we could be that on every daily basis, that probably ranges through half a dozen options. Which funding to go after can really pull you in the wrong direction and be time. I think that's a fantastic service. And even from a venture perspective, I've heard it said too, great, I can get a check from anybody, but I need help. I need guidance.
Absolutely.
I need experience. And feels like you guys have put that model in place right from the get-go.
Yep. 100%. And we hear nothing but, really great things. And founders are very grateful and they keep coming back for more. So clearly.
the ultimate sign of retention is that sell you once, but retain is a different thing.
Absolutely.
So where are you at on your journey from I've lost track a little bit. I'm going to be super candid. So I do this because I get to learn. I get to be curious. I remember when you closed your first fund, where are you at kind of in that mechanism of your funding?
Yeah. So that first fund, you're right, is closed and it's now fully deployed. So we've invested in 22 companies.
Nice.
And so now we're looking at a second fund and we're exploring that right now. And we're exploring a fund led by Crystal Phillips, our VP of Fund 1. And she is exploring this notion of funds for health and human performance. So
right in her, firmly in
right
her wheelhouse of passion and knowledge and experience.
Exactly. So I am super excited about that fund. I'd love to see that get going because, of course, I'm the storyteller. And, you know, I don't know if you know this, Tyler, but I was a health reporter for 16 years. So
I read that on the internet, and I did think it was true.
Yes, there you go. So that is in fact true.
I didn't know you actually the health reporter.
Yes,
I might not have known the specifics, so thank you for clarifying.
Yes. And so I love telling stories about, you know, health founders, health companies, you know, research, new inventions. So the fact that we could have a fund specifically in that space and I could get to tell those kinds of stories, I mean, that would just light me up. And yeah, that'd be really fun. So
you've been doing the Founder Mindset, a podcast that you've put together. You've been getting some great content out there. How's been that journey for you? And I know you've been in journalism for years, reporting on a swath of stories, including health. How was transitioning into this new space for you? Because that was something that I believe you were very transparent about when we talked back in 21. You're like, hey, heck, what the heck? I didn't know this was going on.
Right. So, no, I mean, the founder mindset, wow. I mean, this is a passion project really for me. And because what happened when
secret, all podcasts are.
Right. Totally. So for me, the founder mindset, it was really like we had always talked about like we should do a podcast. And I was like, yeah, we should. And who's going to host it? And what's that going to look like? And why are we doing this? What's the outcome we want from this podcast? And I started doing some research and I started realizing, you know, and listening to a lot of podcasts in this space. And I realized that there was this sort of gap that sort of suited my skill set really well, which was it had to be a very genuine effort. There's a lot of podcasts out there that are just talking about, you know, product market fit, business models, revenue, all that kind of stuff. That's all the stuff that I don't care about. And so to be fully transparent.
And those are a little more academic and they fit into a very clear category. And the human element is often missing in those podcasts.
Precisely. And so, cool. But the people that are doing those podcasts, they are passionate about that. So they should be doing those podcasts and that's great. But I am very curious about the human experience of building these companies from nothing. I know how hard it is now, having talked to founders over the past 5 years. It's such demanding work. It is so hard. It is all consuming. It affects their entire lives, not just, you know, when they're in the office per se. It affects them completely and totally. And yet they keep going. They keep building and they have this resilience. And most of the time it's driven by really wanting to have an impact in the world and to see something come alive that wasn't there before. And so to me, that is fascinating. And I just want to pull at all those strings, you know, like, why are you doing this work? Why? Like, to me, it seems nuts. Like, it's like I would be terrified. And I'm not that good with that kind of risk. And so the fact that these founders, you know, just put everything on the line and just go for it. I respect it and I admire it and I love it and I'm so curious about it. And
that's what makes you great at that conversation. Because you legitimately care about finding that out.
I legitimately want to know why they would do this. So
have you found some common themes? Is it that, and you said it, is it the drive to make the world a better place? Is it there's also a relentless belief in yourself? Is an intense curiosity? Shit, I'm unemployable. I can't really work for anyone, so I might as well do work for which is a little bit of me.
Yeah.
Is there some themes? And we didn't pre-plan this question, so if you don't have this thought organized, that's okay. I'm putting you on the spot. Anything that showed up for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of patterns that emerge, and I've seen. Yeah, and one of them is that resilience. Like they just do not give up. Like it's just you have to be, and I think it was. I'm trying to remember who said it, but you have to be relentless. Yeah. And that's really a trait that you see right across the board. And also you really see this notion of wanting to have an impact in the world. I think that is a driving force. It's a huge motivation for a lot of founders. They want to create something that didn't exist before that's really going to be meaningful and have meaningful human impact. So I think that is a really cool aspect of these people doing what they're doing. And then I think there's also a little bit of like autonomy. People, they're very creative. They're autonomous. They want to do it themselves in their way. But of course, that can be really lonely and really hard. And
a friend of mine referred to me as unemployable. It was the nicest thing. It's the nicest thing she ever said to me.
That has come up many times. Yeah.
Autonomy sounds so much more nice, but yes, I'm admitting. We were joking offline about getting older. Things you realize about yourself. I've realized I'm unemployable. So no matter how hard or easy it is, I'm going to embrace that path.
Totally.
It's okay. I don't need to argue with it anymore.
It just is what it is.
And I'm okay with it. So therefore, we will find the path that works.
Right? That comes up a lot.
Making it sound trite, but there is a set of characteristics. Why I don't think also entrepreneurship and being a founder is for everyone, even though we're glamorizing the heck out of it right now. Yeah. You said the word lonely. It's very real.
It's very lonely. It's very hard. And that's something else we talk about a lot, like how do you deal with that loneliness? And and how do you deal with the fact that this affects your whole life? It affects all the people around you. And so we talk about that too, which is really fun.
I guess, is that the flip side? If we're looking at the patterns of the positives, is there the common thread of that isolation? And you and I were talking about boundaries. It's hard to have boundaries when your business is all encompassing and you're going home and thinking about it, and your wife, your husband, your kids, your family don't maybe get the time because you're birthing this, to use that metaphor too much, you're birthing this business that is all encompassing. That, my friend just had a newborn like 3 weeks ago. Guess what that newborn doesn't have? There's no boundaries at all. It's all encompassing. And he's like, this is fun, but oh my goodness. I'm like, that's not a lot different than a startup.
100%. Yeah. I mean, these are their babies.
24/7.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And so we like to explore that. Like, what does that look like for you? And how do you stay well, or do you? And some of them don't, right? And so we talk about that and what that looks like. And some of them, in fact, most of them are now aware of that. Okay. And are trying to work on it. And so we talk a lot about that. What does that look like for you?
What kind of comes, because you're right, there's a lot more, and there's some programs in the city, and there's a few startups that are focusing on specifically mental health for the founder, and at least giving it a bit of a voice versus you will be impervious to all things, and help and support is for other people. I believe in it, but not for me. I don't need that. Are you seeing that with maybe some of these younger founders as they have a different mindset than some of us older folks who've been around in the journey of like, well, just buck up. For God's sakes, just like shut up and do it.
That's right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes you have to do that, but sometimes having some support is good too.
Absolutely.
Are you seeing that? Are we hopeful for our younger generation? We sound like two old people talking.
No, for sure. I mean, the first person that comes to mind is Chantel Little of Tiller Digital.
Mm-hmm. I saw her episode the other day.
Yeah. So she talks about that at length. She talks about the fact that, she wasn't being authentic as a leader and to who she was, what she needed, and how to stay well. And it wasn't until she really leaned into that that she became a better leader, a more effective leader, and inspired the team around her and to be her authentic self. And then that really led into more effective leadership. So yes, I hear it all the time.
The myth of the visionary leader of I must have all things figured out.
Yeah.
But it's been passed down for generations.
For sure.
And we're command and control, and the Roman from the Roman military, we were still following some of those models, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I hear that. I mean, Jen Hunter pops into my mind too of Pay Shepherd. Yeah, she talked about that too. She was having her babies at the same time she was building Pay Shepherd. And, so she just talked about how, I was building my business and I was building my family at exactly the same time, and how that was all consuming on many levels, and how at one point it became untenable. And then what she learned from it, though, and that's always where we go with these conversations, is what did you learn from that? And you're on the other side of it now. So how does that affect your leadership style? And what effect has that had on your team? And it's always, it's incredible. The team values this knowledge. They love seeing that their leader has learned something, has moved through it, and can now share that wisdom with their team. And of course, that is then transferred to the client, right? When you have a more effective team, then of course your clients are happier too.
It sounds so easy when you say it like that, and it kind of is. Like I think humans, we're very good at overcomplicating things, but sometimes making the choice to be aware, admit, and engage with it as a fund, and I'm going to be a bit fishy. I'm going to be a bit playful here. every fund says they're different. We're different. Right. We help you different. We support you different. But what I heard you said something in your intro, like sometimes they just need a coffee. They just need to check in. It feels like it's also part of the culture over at Thin Air. And to
100%.
like take care of the people and the products will work themselves out. Again,
I mean, if you look up
way too oversimplified.
Totally. But if you look at our core values, like founder first is at the top of the list. And, of course, everybody says they're founder first, but we actually practice that. And all you have to do is talk to any of the founders that we've invested in, and they will tell you that because we are there for them.
Don't take my word for it. Go talk to them.
Don't listen. Go talk to them. And they will tell you that because, to your point and what I said earlier is that sometimes they just need, hey, do you want to just go for a hike in the mountains this weekend? Like maybe you just want to talk, get some movement going, get some fresh air, and, so we'll do that. Or sometimes they're like, I just can't figure out how to, articulate what I'm saying here. I was like, should we just book an hour, you and me, and we'll just like talk it through. And then, and it's just an hour. It's no big deal. But for these founders, it really is so deeply meaningful. And so
back to
it's
your point
very
about
different.
About being isolated in those early stages. You often you don't have budget, you don't have time.
That's just it.
In that order or every order. But you need that network around you. I always joke. I go to a wedding now. I've been married 20 years. I think you've been married for a long time as well.
Yep. And
you hear them say all the things like this, that it's all true. You just don't realize how true it is. And when you go into business, you have to have good advisors and you have to have good people for that. That's all true as well. But oftentimes in that founder journey, you just don't have the time or the resources to have that network in place. But it's just, or even more critical than when you're 5 years into your journey. So I'm so happy to hear that that's the model you use because it is. None of us succeed alone. Ever.
No, 100%. And we are aware because we are entrepreneurs ourselves that it is hard. We have been there. And, and that's top down from, James Lockery and Crystal Phillips and Rick Bird. We've all been there, right? So they know what it's like to build something and how lonely that can be and how hard it can be. And so we all take that very seriously. And so, yes, we are definitely there for our founders.
What's your optics on Calgary right now? You've been in Calgary for a long time from the news cycle. What's your perspective? What's going on? And obviously we're a couple of days into the week of tariffs and all the craziness that's happening. So we'll maybe park that over here for a second.
I appreciate that.
Who knows? That's just too much insanity. And I make no claims. I don't think anybody can claim to know what's going on there. I don't think the people that are leading it even know what's going on, but that's another story. But the vibe, Calgary's like, from when you and I first chatted, even to now, things have like they're positive, they're optimistic. They've also settled out a little bit. There was some high vibration activity in the startup venture space in 21, early 22, and that's maybe leveled out. But I can't think of anywhere better to be. I don't know. What's your optics on that?
No, I'm the same, and so there's a few reasons for that though, and I think that. What is unique to Calgary is what I focus on, right? And what is unique to Calgary and Alberta is that we have an ecosystem that is truly collaborative. And it truly is focused on building a community of people. And I think there's an understanding and a shared knowledge there where we understand that when we work together, we can move faster. And we've seen evidence of that, right? So our ecosystem is growing faster than anywhere else and in North America. So, that is evidence that we are doing something right. And so I think as an ecosystem, we continue to lean into this collaborative notion. Do you need a hand? Do you know this person? Let me make that introduction for you. It was funny when
people follow through. Like,
and they do.
That's the difference. Toronto, you get the offer, you don't get the follow through. In the same way, I'm going to pick on Toronto, Vancouver.
Listen, I lived in Toronto too, and so I get it.
It's different. You get the winks and guns. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do lunch. And I'm like, we're never going to do lunch. Why would you even say that? In Calgary, people actually follow through.
They really do, and I think that is unique to us, and I think that makes our ecosystem really special. And I think it actually is going to make our ecosystem grow faster and be more effective. So I think that is what I've observed.
There is that flywheel, and there is that, like back in 21,
100%.
There was earlier stage, there wasn't as much venture funding in the market. There wasn't as many companies that had been now 3 or 4 or 5 years in, and they've grown and they've got customers. That's just continuing on that path right now.
Yeah,
it's very optimistic.
Agreed.
I just recently had a company called Alchemist One, and it's an online app specifically for gaming, alcohol, and drug addiction. And it was founders that were originally from Saskatoon, but they were down in Florida, and they met RBCX, they met Platform, they met Calgary Innovate, they met Alberta Innovates. And they physically moved their business here. And I talked to them about 6 months in, and I was like, do we live up to what we say we are? And this is my reference point of one. They were like 100%. People have been really open. We moved here because we felt it was a better place to start our business. And 6 months in, we are not disappointed. So it was actually an external reference point, which is good for you and I to say, but we're not, everyone knows that we drink the Kool-Aid.
Yes, right? But there's
I
the
mixed
evidence.
the Kool-Aid and offered to. That's a weird metaphor.
But there's the evidence, right? Right there. There's the evidence that backs up these claims that we make.
I was optimistic they were going to say yes, but I was like, okay, are we living up to this story that we tell ourselves and that I like to believe and that I do witness? But until you're from outside and you physically show up here and go, okay, all right, I came here because of a promise or a belief that it was going to be a certain way. And 6 months in, they said that it was. So I will give them a shout out for outcome.
See, but I hear that too on the podcast, right?
Great.
I hear that too regularly on the podcast. Like, I mean, for the season 2 season finale, we taped that in front of a live audience at Platform. And we had a few, innovation leaders from the community there. And we also had a founder, Amrish Khanna of OraQ. Okay. And Amrish, and so he was there so I could ask him, okay, so like what supports did you need? Nice. Do you need? And what are the ones that you just didn't really actually find that valuable? Like, so what's that about? And he talked very openly about the ecosystem in Alberta and how supportive it was. Because for Amrish, he was a dentist and now he's created this platform. And he was like, I didn't know anything about running a business. I'm a dentist. Like, and he just talked about how, he went over to Platform and did some of the programming there. And then, he went over and talked to another advisor. And then he just said the community was so collaborative and really encouraged him and really helped him understand what he needed to know. Because in those early stages, you don't even know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Ignorance is bliss until it's not, right?
That's right. Until it's just scary.
Yeah. Which is, there's ghosts around every corner. Out of the 22 companies you're invested in, how many of them are actually based here in Calgary? Or in Alberta? Maybe Calgary was too specific.
Yeah, Alberta. And I think most of them. Okay. Yeah, like I think there's only 2 that are not. This is a good question.
I knew the majority were just because I know enough to know that, but I wasn't sure.
The majority, I believe, are in Alberta. Yeah, and I think there's only 2 that are not.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
How are you seeing, and as head of story, you're out there creating that brand awareness, creating that, like, are you guys still seeing a lot of, and maybe I know this is maybe not your area, but I know this, you guys are a small group and you're pretty intertwined. You're still seeing a pretty good flow of opportunities, companies to see, like, do we have any shortages? I'm always been like, are we short on money or are we short on opportunities? And the gap in the middle is where the magic happens often, right?
Yeah, no, there's tons of opportunity here. There's lots of deal flow right here in Alberta. In fact, I know as Crystal's thinking about Fund 2, it will be less geo-specific to Alberta, but we will always start and want to win in our backyard first. But then we will take it, across North America. But I mean, she has said to me that, no, we're starting here because there's just such incredible deal flow right here in Alberta. So,
well, and not overlooking your backyard where your relationships, Crystal, as an example, is incredibly well known in the city and in the province for the work she's done.
Precisely.
You want to capitalize on that. That awareness makes those first conversations so much easier.
Absolutely.
Whether that first customer is usually going to come from someone or a relationship you have. It's just how it is, right?
Precisely. Yeah. So no, lots of cool stuff going on here.
I love it. Content creation takes time, takes energy. You have huge passion for it, so that makes that part easier. And I'm sure you've had this conversation. People are like, oh, should I start a comp? I'm like, what do you love? What do you not love? Because if you don't love it, it's going to look a lot like work really fast. But I'm curious, like, how do you gauge success? Is it just the quality of the conversation, qualitatively? Or also as a business, do you look at like, wow, we've got reach. This has happened. It's opened doors. I remember even when we did the first podcast, you reached out to me not long after with James and they said, hey, we got an investor because they listened. Like that jump from I listened to I wrote a check. That's a pretty, like, usually podcasts are pretty high up in the funnel of awareness. I was very proud of that. I shared that quote. I love, because supporting the community is why I started this thing.
Yes.
How do you track that? Like, for anyone thinking about their journey of content creation and all that it entails.
So clearly, yes, you want to track it and you want to use all of those, platforms that exist. I'm not an expert at that at all. Yep. I'll be the first to admit that. But yes, some of that you want. So, but that isn't the whole story, though. So yes, you can have your numbers, you can track your reach and listens and all that stuff. But that's not it. That's not the whole picture, because a lot of this cannot be measured. So what I really like to hear also are founders that have said, oh my gosh, have you been on Leah's podcast? Like, you really need to go on her podcast. And then someone will reach out to me and be like, hey, I want to be on your podcast. I'm like, great. Like, let's talk. So that's huge for me when I get, cool. Founders referring other founders, or I just get full on cold outreach. Like someone's like, hey, I heard your podcast. It was awesome. I want to be on it. Great. And, this is happening from people that are not in Calgary or Alberta or even Canada now. So that's really exciting.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's brand awareness. You can't invest or participate in something you don't know exists. So brand awareness does matter, everybody.
It does, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, you're the marketing guy. So yes,
but it's still an argument of like, we love to run sales campaigns. We love transactional. We love lead flow.
Yes.
But you're not going to get that lead if they don't even know you exist before they see that first touch point. And it's tough because one is more measurable, how many marketing qualified leads or sales qualified leads versus the old adage I've heard, you can't go there you'll never go there. If you can't go there with your mind, you'll never go there with your wallet. And I was like, that's such a powerful, it's very transactional, it's very retail. But if they don't know you exist, how are they ever going to show up in your store? If they don't show up in your store, how are they going to buy from you? Blow that out in any way you want.
Right.
The same kind of mindset is true.
But that's sort of the fundamental, right?
100%.
But then I also love, we've talked about the brand, we've talked about the numbers and the reach, but I also, one of my most favorite takeaways and why I believe the podcast is successful and has the ability to continue to be successful is because founders tell me afterwards, thank you so much for that conversation. No, I have never told anybody what I just told you.
Nice.
I hear that often. I see people who sit in this little podcast studio that I'm sitting in right now, they get emotional often. And so I measure success on the fact that I've been able to create a space where people feel comfortable, where they feel open and ready to share some of the really true and genuine feelings that they have about being a founder. And I'm incredibly passionate and honored to have these people sitting with me and sharing this. I mean, I'm thinking of like David Laud, who is the CEO of Verum. And this is a big dude who's got, a very stoic man. And he comes in here and he sits down and he will be the first to tell you this. Leah, I got emotional in there. And I was like, yes, you did. And he's
create this little container. I love it.
Right? And he said, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to reflect on the impact I've had on this team and my community and the work that I've done. And, so that to me is deeply meaningful. And so that's one of the ways I personally measure success as well, is when I hear stories like that.
Well, I'm biased, but that's the kind of content I want to hear. That's the kind of, we all hear the rhetoric and the noise and the negativity, and it's nice to just hear a good two humans chatting in a very human way.
Right. And I actually think
that,
yeah, and I think that's kind of the niche, right, that we're going after, because there's a lot of noise in the world. And we don't need to go into that. And I think what that does, though, is that I think it makes us crave genuine, true human connection and understanding. And so that's where I operate, or at least I try to.
You're definitely in your sweet spot. And podcasting, obviously, because you write, social media, podcasting to me, and I've leaned all in on this. I'm coming up on, I think I've done between the two shows 600 and some episodes.
Wow,
it's such
congratulations,
a unique,
Tyler.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That got super carried away with itself.
That
was a good idea that just ran wild. I just can't imagine not doing it, because I get to, so podcasting as a medium, if you're like, oh, should I be podcasting, should I write articles? It is about what's going to blow your hair back a little bit, because there's a point of time where you're going to need to stick with it because you believe in it, not because the riches are flowing in and the people and the autographs and the downloads. If you don't believe in it, it's going to be hard to get to that point.
100%.
It's such a unique medium for having a meaningful conversation.
Agreed.
That is not 140 characters or a 2-minute soundbite. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Agreed. And so, I have many thoughts on this, Tyler, but here's the thing.
I thought you might.
As you know, I worked in television for 23 years, but my actual first passion was radio. And
I did not know that.
Yes, my first passion was radio. I mean, when I was studying in journalism school, my passion was radio. I wanted to work in radio. I kept getting scholarships in radio. I thought, I can't wait to work in radio. But they kept putting me on television. And so I
could say because you look too good, but that's obvious. I might have a face for radio. I think you have a face for TV. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to go with that line of thinking.
And, I loved television as well, right?
That's amazing.
And I loved television as well. And I loved what I was able to do in television for a very long time. That's the reason why I did it for thousands of years. And so...
Lifetimes.
Lifetimes of years, exactly. But I always wanted, when I left media, to do some work in audio because I still loved it. And so when we started tossing this notion of the podcast around, I was like, oh, here is an opportunity for me to explore that.
Life comes full circle.
Yeah.
Why? What is it about the audio? Is it and also I know in like reading the news, you had very specific, like I'm going to dig in, even if I dig into a story, I've only got a couple minutes to do that story.
Absolutely.
And is audio just often more longer form? It just changes the whole way you engage with another person or a piece of information.
So there's a couple points there. Yeah.
Sorry.
So number
one.
one.
I didn't mean to answer my question.
No, it's totally fine. So
I think out loud in case you haven't noticed.
So do I. So totally appreciate it. So yes, number one, the podcast medium itself can be very intimate. And, it just really lined up with where I am in my life too. You get in your 50s and you're like, I'm just not interested in having conversations that are meaningless. And I want to engage with people, right, in a very genuine, authentic way. And that actually translates really well in the podcast space. So there's that, number one, personally. But number two, in the podcast space, it was the first time I was able, to your point, Tyler, have a conversation that was long form. In TV land, it was 2 minutes, right? When you're doing news. And even when I was hosting the morning show, maybe 4 or 5 minutes was sort of a long conversation. And if you were doing a feature, you can get 9 minutes. You're like, wow, this is amazing.
I love how your world was broken into 2, 4, and 9 minute intervals.
Right? And so the opportunity to have a conversation that's 35, 45, 55 minutes was just so fun for me to explore. And to your point, it also allows for that really deep, meaningful conversation because we're not in a rush. There is no clock. It's just you and I having a conversation. And so I love that. And I'm very grateful that I've been given the opportunity to do this.
The lost art of a good old-fashioned chat.
Right.
One of my favorite compliments is when someone says, it's kind of like I was eavesdropping on two friends chatting. I'm like, and I've had more than one person say that, unprompted or unscripted by me. And I was like, okay. But the fourth time, I'm like, okay, that's a pattern. I really like this.
Right?
And,
this is something real.
Not that I could have defined it or said, but that to me captured it. And again, about something meaningful that's relevant to them or,
Absolutely.
It's a time that you get to talk to that person about something they're incredibly passionate and invested about, where it's never about you. It's always about them. And then about what the audience can gain from it. It's a pretty winning formula, I say.
Right?
I think I'm giving away the secret sauce now.
It's also the reason why I consciously chose not to have a video component for the season, right? So, because I know, having worked in television, as soon as you put a video camera on, it changes the nature of the conversation. 100%. Okay. And so there is no video component to the founder mindset. And some people are always like, well, why don't you have video? Everybody wants video.
I've stuck to pure audio as well. And I get
right?
back. And the world,
you and I share
even
this.
LinkedIn, everybody's indexing even better. So we're trying to use clips because it does get you a little more traffic. But it's a different dialogue. It's a very, very different interaction in terms of, and some people get very, like the mic freaks them out. A camera's another level. Mm-hmm.
Precisely. Yeah. So, agreed. We have to do more of some like little snippets of video content, which we're going to do.
That's about getting ourselves out there. That's not about the best formula to create a deeper level conversation. I think it's good to identify those two things. But yeah, I've resisted going to video. And it's also just I love the volume of talking to so many cool people. Yes. Jumping on this medium is so easy. There's no barrier. Just boom, get on, have a 45-minute chat. You don't need any tech. You need a half decent microphone, a set of headphones, and you're in business.
I know.
And I've kind of got addicted to the amount of people I can talk to on this medium. It's so fun.
Right?
I'm getting a little mini MBA every day. I love it.
It's the best. You learn so much.
Yeah. Anyway, now people are just like, okay, guys, you love podcasting. I get it. I know you ask onto these questions of your founders and when you chat with them, but I think I know the answer because I can hear it. You're doing something that fills you up. How do you keep yourself filled up? And you're busy, you're running, you're doing content, you're telling stories, you're telling other people's stories. What do you do to manage you? Or is it so self-fulfilling that it creates its own energy is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. That's essentially it. Truthfully. It's, you build something that you really want to do, that you're genuinely curious about, that you love to do. And that's what I did here with this podcast.
It's a bumper sticker, but it's true.
Right. Now, it's not my full-time job, right? It's not the only thing that I do here at Thin Air Labs. But it's certainly right now my most favorite. But cool. I love it. But I also love video
How many episodes
right?
do you record? Do you do like one a week? What's your because I know you do shows and you and I chatted about that way back in the day.
Yeah.
That format of like making it a series and biting it off, doing it well, and then pausing and then coming back with another series.
Yeah. Yeah. And I deeply appreciated that advice you gave me right out of the gate. I reached out to you first. I was like, you've been doing this forever. I don't even know what I'm doing. What do I do? And you were absolutely...
You nailed your version of it. I think incredibly well.
Thank you, Tyler. And thank you for your advice and support. But no, it was really about the first season was just like, let's just test the market. Does anybody even want this content, right? So, I mean, it was just that really simple 6-episode season. We did some bonus content for it. And yeah, we got great feedback. Do more. Okay, so then we doubled it. So season 2, we doubled it. So we did 12 episodes.
Nice.
And we just wrapped that up in February, was our 12th episode. And we're going to do some bonus content that'll come out in April. And then we'll launch again in September with 18 episodes. So we're just going to keep growing it. And just very thoughtfully, growing it. And making sure that I can actually manage it, because it's, as to your point, it's a passion project, but it is a lot of work. And for me, I really want to do it well. So when you want to do it well, it takes more time.
It's very easy to underestimate because you see or hear the hour or the 45 minutes, and you're like, oh my God, that must be so fun. You just like fire up a mic and do it. We're probably, I would say 6 to 8, 7 hours per episode. When you think about editing, producing, promoting, getting it out there, sharing it, doing some pre-research, having the actual chat. There's no real easy button. To do it well, you have to put in there's a certain amount of effort and energy, and the skills to do those different things as well.
Agreed.
I have a good team. I'm very fortunate. If not, I would probably not have got past episode 3.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. So I too had to, for season 2, hire a team. Yeah. It was like, okay, I need help if we're going to do this more. And so I work with Astronomic Audio. They're amazing. They're based out of Edmonton. Talk about kind, thoughtful, responsive folks. Yeah, they're tremendous.
I love plugging good businesses. So thanks for doing that. 4 years ago, you said, wow, I had no idea this world existed. Now, 4 years later, thoughts? Do you love it? Are your friends are like, what is she doing? Where does she work? Just curious about that journey, because you're now all in. You're celebrating your 5-year anniversary. Why we're talking
totally
from a completely different field. Is this the field for you? Have you found home?
Well, I've certainly found people that I like to hang out with a lot. So that's
step one when you're in your 50s.
Right?
Do I like these people or not?
Right? Exactly. So no, but my close friends are still like, I feel like Chandler, on Friends. Nobody knew what he did for a living. So sometimes my friends are still like, what are you doing? And they're like, we picture you like walking around in like this little outfit in an office. And, so because my friends know me as TV Leah, right?
Yep.
So this is all new to them. But really it comes back to values and value alignment and what it is we're trying to do together. And for me, that is, we're founder first. We're infinitely curious. We're a group of unlike minds. So there's a bunch of different people. We've got a bunch of different skill sets, and we want to create meaningful impact. So, I mean, those are the values that sit on Thin Air Lab's website. But I mean, I wrote them, but I wrote them in
from the heart is what I'm hearing you say.
But I wrote them, of course, in collaboration and in conversation with the team here. So.
You're living them, and the way you do your podcasting, the way you support your founders, like again, they're not words on a wall or on a website. They're
precisely
how do we act around here on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock when no one's looking or everyone's looking? That's who we are.
Well, exactly,
and that's when the rubber hits the road. Yeah,
it took us a few years to actually figure out what they were and get them in a place where we could write them down.
Because you were 1 year old, you didn't know yet. Back to the journey of time and getting okay with like what we are, and because to say yes to one value is to say no to another value, and I think that's where it deserves the time, and it's okay to change it if you realize that it wasn't right.
Exactly right. Yep. And so. But what's funny is once we got those up, which was, I think, in 2023, they haven't changed. So I think maybe we got it right. But to your point, it took a lot of time and energy and conversation and collaboration to land on those. And
those processes can be hard and uncomfortable.
They're very hard.
Because it's very esoteric until it lands, right?
Exactly. And so, I mean, that's why I continue to work here and I continue to do this work because, and I believe on the bigger mission too, right? Like I really do believe that Alberta needs to evolve its narrative. I do believe that we need to diversify our economy, and I want the world to understand what's going on here. And what I know that is going on here is these incredible founders building incredible companies that are going to have ridiculously impactful. It's going to be so impactful for so many humans globally. And this is happening and nobody knows about it still. So I still have lots of work to do.
You and I both agree that we still have a marketing comms and brand problem of like, tell the story. And
we still have lots of work to do.
I had a politician tell me once, she goes, Tyler, once your constituents start getting annoyed with your message, that's the only time they're actually hearing you. So we still have work to do, Leah.
We do.
We got to annoy all those people into understanding who we are as a province and what we're actually capable of and what we're actually doing.
Well, 100% agreed, right? And that's why storytellers like you and I need to keep doing what we're doing and helping each other out, being collaborative, as we talked about earlier.
Hugs. This is a great episode. Leah, thank you for all that you do. The Founder Mindset season 3 with 18 episodes coming out in the fall.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that. You've got a great catalog. So go and what did I read? It's something when you hit 10 episodes that like 50% of your content will come from old episodes, which is preaches the value of having a series and having a library.
Right. I didn't even understand that until I started working in this
space.
The
lifespan of a podcast blows my mind. People I guarantee will hear this and they'll probably go and I'll see re-listens of your podcast from 4 years ago. Because someone searches you and it comes up because Google indexes really well on podcasts, and boom, it gets traffic. It lives so much longer than a social media post.
I love.
Me too, because this conversation I will like to believe will be valuable years into the future.
Right? In TV land, we used to call it evergreen content.
Yes.
So
podcast does that, I think, exceptionally well.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't even know that.
In a world of quick consumption media.
Yeah. I love that we can track that. Oh wait, 60% of people.
See, some metrics are fun because they validate this thing we call we call an initiative that's also sometimes a hobby, sometimes a passion.
I love that. I love that people are listening to the podcast and going, "Wow, that was great. I'm going to go back and listen to more episodes."
Awesome. That is subliminally what we just told them to do as well. So by now you've realized that listening to old episodes is a great way to get caught up in what's happening in our ecosystem.
Right? There you go, everybody.
Radio voice, Tyler. Leah, thank you so much for the work you do, for your friendship, and for just being a part of this ecosystem. Thanks for coming on. It's great to chat with you.
My pleasure entirely. Thanks, Tyler.
Have a great.